Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. You know, I love systems and processes, and today we're going to chat about that very topic with Rich Schnitzel. He owns and operates a done-for-you automation company, helping six-figure entrepreneurs build the automation they need to scale their business to 7 figures and beyond. He teaches entrepreneurs how to level up their business through the power of technology and create frameworks for capitalizing on all the benefits of automation without the negative. As an engineer, nerd, and a husband to an English teacher, theater major, he excels at having technical conversations when tech makes your head hurt. Kind of like when money makes your head hurt. This is a skill he uses to guide entrepreneurs through the process of automating their business in positive and impactful ways. Let's meet Rich. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Richard Schnitzel. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me.
So can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I'm also a lifelong IT person for my family. And those two skills have brought me to this place of business automation where I help six-figure entrepreneurs understand what's going on in their business, how they're doing the things, why they're doing the things that they're doing, and helping to create a framework that we can apply automation as a tool to increase the efficiency and the efficacy of the way that their business is running on a day-to-day basis.
And I have to say, I love engineers in business because they create systems, which allows the owner a life of freedom. Whenever I meet engineers in business, it's always like much more process oriented versus what most business owners are, which there's not much processes and systems. And so it makes it very difficult for them. So how'd you make this jump from mechanical engineer to getting started doing this?
Yeah, so I think like most entrepreneurs, I did not start out my business doing business automation. I actually started out doing Facebook Messenger bots, which was probably an even worse decision, mainly because I got into it because I really liked the idea of the technology, the ability to scale an interaction with somebody that didn't have this really strict, regimented style of communication. But I realized really early on into my experience with that as an engineer, I'm incredibly bad at writing copy. Most of the things that I write turn out like a lab report with bullet points and very clear writing, but unless you're an engineer, the flavor of what I was creating wasn't really for you. But what I was good at was creating this structure around the way that I wanted a messenger bot to work. And once other people saw that, they'd say, hey, wow, that's really cool. How did you build that? And I was really good at explaining what the tech was doing in the background in a way that didn't use all of the tech jargon, so that somebody could go, okay, I get the principle. I get why it's doing this. Now I can take this structure and apply it to my business in a slightly different way, because you are 80% of the way there and I just want to veer to the left a little bit to make it my flow. And I kept having those conversations with people about how to build that back end and what that flow and that structure needed to look like. And as I did that and I do a project, take a step back and go, okay, what did I enjoy? What did I not enjoy? What was I really good at when I was working on this? The answer kept coming back to this idea of working with somebody to understand the operations, using that training that I've had in my natural superpower of being able to hold a system in my head, walk somebody through it, help them understand what those decisions were. And then once I could get them to a point of being able to follow it themselves, being able to look at it and go, yes, okay, this is my business, this is the way I want it to run. Then layering on top of that a conversation around automation as a tool that we could then put into place in different aspects of that workflow to take it to the next level.
And that's pretty interesting. It's funny how businesses find us instead of us finding the business, in the sense that the market tells you what they want. Mm-hmm. And if you listen, then that definitely kind of brings it about. So I also am not the greatest writer, but I just bought this new automation software that actually writes great copy for me. So you hand it a paragraph and you tell it kind of what style and what your purpose is, and it throws you back some wonderful copy. So I'm excited about that, because it's going to help me dramatically improve my my social media stuff. So when you're looking at this, right, how should business owners decide what parts of their business they should automate?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if you've been in business a while, it's probably one of the hardest questions you're going to get asked, because as entrepreneurs, we love to create things. We have all of these ideas in our head of things we want to do, places we want to go. And for a lot of people, you sit down and you try to find this path through to set a workflow in place. And you kind of feel like a kid in a candy store where you go, okay, I want a Mars bar. Oh, no, there's a Snickers. Oh, no, there's a Good and Daddy. We get pulled in all of these different directions. So my recommendation is always, first, start with a pain point that you have, because the pain point is going to be something that's fresh and front of mind, something that will be able to pull your attention in for a longer period of time. Something that you have a really good understanding of what's going on in your business, so you can dive right into figuring out how to improve it. And then the next step is to set your goalposts in what you're trying to look at. So don't start at the beginning and then just trust yourself to follow a path, because much like the way that we start businesses and we look back in 6 months from starting and we go, oh my God, what did I create? This is amazing, but I had no idea I was doing it while I was doing it. Creating a workflow can be a very similar experience. So we need to understand what the first action is. Maybe it's a new call coming in for a lead, and then what our intended outcome is, whether that's getting them on a sales call, whether that's getting them to a certain lead funnel page, whatever that looks like for you. But setting those boundary points so that when you are then trying to figure out how you want to get from point A to point B, you have a clear litmus test for yourself to understand when you're getting off track into something that, while might be relevant to your business, isn't relevant to what you're working on right now. And that'll allow you to go, okay, this is something that needs to happen after they pay. It's really important, so I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. but then I'm going to put that over on the side and I'm going to maintain my focus on this specific task that I'm trying to get done. And then the third thing, which perhaps might be the most important, is when you're doing this, have this conversation with somebody else. Because we all suffer from not seeing the forest for the trees, because we're in our business and we've been doing it for so long, we don't recognize the choices that we're making as choices anymore. They're just a fact of life. This is the way that my business runs. So having that conversation with somebody else gives you a sounding board for them to ask questions and pull thoughts out of your brain in ways that you haven't thought about them in a really long time, and reposition yourself to understand what the true path that you're taking is to get from that point A to point B.
And that makes a lot of sense. Too often business owners are stuck in their business, and so it's hard to see everything from a step back. Now, you talked about a new lead coming in, and that creates a sequence of events. I think a lot of times business owners think that some of this stuff can't be automated, like it's too hard to make the right decision points or so forth. Do you find that with most things, or is that just our misconception of what can and can't be automated?
Yeah, I think it's rare that an entire workflow can be automated. But what is very common is that if an entire workflow is 100% representation of what you have to do, you can find 5 to 10% chunks 6 or 7 times in that workflow that can be automated. So the idea isn't to take this thing that somebody was doing 100% manually and recreate that all in an automation. It's breaking that down into those pieces and going, okay, when the lead comes in, I don't really need to have a touch point with them as a human-to-human interaction until they get to this specific step in the process. Everything before then, all I need to do is give them the resources to book a call on my calendar, to send them an email, to set the expectations, to send them a reminder if they haven't booked a call in a couple of days, to follow up with them. Then you get to this hard stop point where then you need to make that interaction with them. That's that last 30% human interaction. And then once that interaction is done, you can then offload those next couple steps back into an automation to handle the little things that may need to happen, whether that's, notifying the next member of your team what happens so that they can take action, creating a folder in your Dropbox or Google Drive to store the results of that call. It's about making 1% changes that when you add them all together, create a big movement in your business. And it's about understanding that automation is going to get rid of 70 to 80% of your workflow. And that last 20% is the aspects of what you do that make it the magic, right? It's the things that bring authenticity to the way that you approach your business, to the way that you interact with the outside world. I never want automation to detract from that.
And that makes sense. I have a question, though. How do you know if your automation is broken? And what I mean by this is every so often you'll have a conversation with a business owner and they're like, I haven't gotten emails in 3 weeks, or something broke somewhere in their system, and they're not highly automated. They're very lightly automated, but something somehow, for whatever reason, doesn't do what it's supposed to. Is there a way to create warning signals to say, hey, our automation isn't working the way it's supposed to?
Yes, there is. A couple different ways. Certainly the first line of defense is, if you're running a program like Zapier, there's emails that come out that would notify you if something's broken or if there's errors. So setting up internal flags into the automation that you're creating to notify you when, I call that catastrophic failure, when everything just falls apart and the automation is truly broken. But I think the other way to resolve that is to have a clear understanding of what the outcome is so that we notice it in our business when it happens. I think a lot of times what you're describing is I don't understand what the automation is doing before it gets into my email to notify me of something. So when they stop, I have no view to fall back on to understand whether this is normal or abnormal, to be able to go check and make sure that everything's running correctly. But part of what I do is to try and give people that understanding of, okay, these are the steps that are occurring on a very high level view, and this is the intended outcome. So that when that intended outcome stops, it's a clear signal to you that you need to go check on something.
Can you give us some examples of what can be automated? Because I think a lot of times business owners may not even realize which parts of their business can benefit from this.
Yeah. So a little bit of a tricky question on my part, just because one of the beautiful things about automation is there's a lot that we can do, but not a lot that we always should do. And that's that benefit of having a conversation with people. But from a very high level, automation is useful for things like creating folders for clients. It's useful for when you have a lead come in and you're putting them into an active campaign email sequence, removing that person from the sequence when they take their call to action.
People forget that one.
It's actually one of my pet peeves of, like, if I sign up for the thing you're asking me to sign up for in your email campaign, don't send me another email the next day asking me to sign up and continue selling me. Because most of those things are a URL click. And you can set up active campaign when I click a URL to then trigger an action that is to remove me from that sequence. We can do things like, if you have a CRM, you might have stages of a client sales cycle or life cycle once they're bought in, of the steps that they take. You can track somebody's progression through those stages, and at each stage, send out tasks to all the team members that need to know about that stage, because then it's their responsibility to take it forward from there. You can set timers up. So if you know that somebody coming into your business, they buy a product, maybe you need to ship that product and you're going to ship it within 48 hours of the purchase. Set up a timer so that in 48 hours you check back in with that order. If it hasn't passed the fulfillment stage, you can send out a flag to your project manager or whoever you want on your team to say, hey, this person ordered this product on Tuesday. It's now Thursday. This is the product that they ordered. This is when they bought it. Here's the person you need to go talk to figure out what happened so we can resolve this quickly.
So is most of this around the sales side that you're automation, or are there other things that you can automate?
No, you can certainly automate the back end side as well. Sales, I think we get a lot of focus on because it tends to be the higher volume side of our business, right? You need to bring in a lot more sales to get a certain amount of business, but you can certainly automate the fulfillment side of things as well. I think the importance of automating the fulfillment side is setting the expectations for the client at that point, because I think we've all been really conditioned to understand that there's a lot of automation in sales. And we sometimes get a little shocked when it comes into fulfillment. But the idea of when you buy a product, after it ships, automating an email out to that person because you know the product that they bought and you know the time that it shipped, to say, hey, I hope you're enjoying your product. Please leave us a review. Here's a quick video about how to best use your product. If somebody's in a long sequence, once you're a consultant or a coach and you're working with somebody on a 3-month time frame, and you have the schedule set out that we're going to work on this thing for 2 weeks. By week 6, we should be at this point, and you have your stages set up. As you move somebody through the next stages, you can set up those automations to automatically assign tasks to your team for outreach points. You can pull in different templates, right? If you're giving somebody a template, but you don't want them to get it until a certain point because that information would be overwhelming or relevant to them at the very beginning, you could set up an automation that says, okay, when they get to the 3rd stage, I then want to pull these 6 documents into their shared Google Drive folder so that they can have access to them, because now is when they can really get the most out of learning this type of information.
And I think makes a lot of sense. You were going to say?
Yes, I think that the important part about adding automation into those sequences is making sure that your automation is really clear that it's automation, and that you're setting a point for somebody to get back in touch with a human and they understand when that's going to happen. You never want to send somebody down a black hole of automation where they can't get out, because that's when we start to get frustrated.
That's usually what happens when I call an 800 number.
Exactly.
The first thing they tell me is that they have a website. I'm like, really? That's fascinating. And I can get my answer there. I didn't know that. Do you think that maybe I tried and I couldn't, and that's why we're on the phone? But, So one of the things that happens with automation and just the scariness, people think they're going to lose their job, right? Mm-hmm. Or that you're going to automate them out of a job. So you get employee pushback. What have you found?
Yeah, I think the biggest key to handling that is involve the employees early in the process. I think the biggest mistake we can make is sitting in our office alone, building this amazing thing that we think is incredible and is going to completely change the way that our business runs and benefit our employees, and then walking out of the door one day for the group huddle and saying, okay, team, I built this. This is the new way we're going to be doing things. You guys now get to work 80% less. Aren't you happy? Because that's not their interaction with what you just told them. Right? They have what their response is what you just described. Why are you removing this? Did I not do this well? Are you trying to get rid of me? What's going on? If we can flip that conversation on its head, start it early so that you can come to them and say, look, I'm trying to grow the business 30% in the next year. I'm looking at the way that we're running right now. I noticed that you're working really hard. You're doing a great job, but you're working 35, 40 hours a week. If I grow another 30%, I have 2 options, right? Either I'm going to make you miserable because I'm going to start asking you to work 60 hours a week and have no work-life balance, or I'm going to have to bring somebody else onto the team. And I don't want to do that because I like the team where we are. We're really cohesive and we work really well together. So I'm building this automation out to make it easier for you to do your job, make it so you can do your job better in preparation for the growth that we're going to be seeing over the next couple months. This is what I'm thinking about doing. What are your thoughts on this process? What can I do to make this automation more effective for you? And so you're changing their relationship with why automation is being entered into the business. And you're doing it from a place where even if you don't use their ideas because they're untenable, at least you're having a conversation back and forth, and you can explain to them throughout this process so that they understand what decisions are being made and why they're being made. We as humans don't like change, especially change that happens in 5 minutes during a call. So the idea of spreading out the period where we get to get comfortable with the idea, we get to get excited about the fact that, I don't have to spend 3 hours on phone calls now chasing somebody down, that I can focus on this other part of my job that I really like. The phone calls I didn't really enjoy, but I had to do them, right? So it's not usually you're taking away something that I really enjoy and I'm going to leave if I can't do this anymore. It's just, that's my job. Why are you removing this from me?
So I know this is going to sound funny, but this is the number one objection that I get when I talk to people about systematizing. I don't have time to do this.
Yeah, I get it too, actually. Yeah, to me, it's a reflection of the idea of task saturation. Like the idea that you can be so busy working on your business that if I walked into your office and asked you what your name was, you'd put up a finger and you'd say, hold on one second. Because you have so much going on in your brain that you can't take more resources away to focus on something else. And that is a very real problem. So I think when you're approaching systematization, you need to think of it from the perspective of momentum. Think of it like trying to push a car or a really large ball. You aren't going to be able to step up to it, give it a punch, and propel it 20 miles an hour. The same way that if you're really busy in your business right now, you're not going to be able to sit down at your desk on Thursday morning because you decided to systematize your business and actually be able to get anything done. It's why my recommendation when you start automating your business is to go to your pain points. We need to start small and find small things that we can do to remove that stress and that load from you and your business so that you can open up your bandwidth to then attack larger challenges and fold automations on top of each other. The beauty of systems is that there's two aspects. One, a 1% change in your business added up can create a 30 to 40% massive shift in what you do. So you only need to focus on those 1% and 2% changes. And systems act and automation act very much like Legos in that you stack Legos together to create, a 1/32nd scale of the Eiffel Tower and these amazing structures, but you don't build that from one piece. It's a bunch of small blocks. So all of those small blocks are the systems in your business. And as you create a system, you get to offload worrying about that from your brain and allow your team and your company to run with it the way that it's meant to. And offloading that then creates a little bit more space to take on the next system and then take on the next system.
It's kind of like the flywheel example. It takes a while to get the flywheel going, but once it starts rolling, it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And so that is important. I will say a business that is well automated and has systems and processes in it is a more valuable business. Mm-hmm. And it also allows the business owner more time to enjoy their life because they're not stuck in the business. They have the freedom to leave and to get out. And so that's why I love these whole processes of being able to do it, because at the end of the day, it affects the bottom line, which is profitability. And as you talked about, you can get more work out of an employee by implementing systems in the job so that you have higher and higher profit margins. And again, I tell people, like, you talk about 1%. And people don't think much about it. But if you could get 1% a quarter, in 12 quarters, you've got 12% profit margins. And for many businesses, that would be massive. And that's not a ton of change. It's slow, steady progress that is what allows you to have that kind of success.
Agree 100%.
I am glad to hear it. So what are some of the mistakes people make when they automate their businesses?
I think the biggest one I see is automating too fast, too far. I'm a mechanical engineer and a car guy, so I'm going to use another car analogy. But in technology, we are very commonly affronted with the equivalent of a Ferrari, right? This bright, shiny sports car that does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and it's amazing. And we all look at that and go, oh my God, I really want that Ferrari. That's really cool. Same thought process works for the business, where we look at automation and we get presented with this idea of, AI you were talking about earlier, about being able to put your copy into a program and it learns from you and spits out a better version so that you can start improving your copy. These holy grail ideas that we're trying to reach for. But the reality is that in a lot of situations, what I really want is a minivan so I can get my 4 kids to school and soccer practice. So the mistakes that we make are not taking the time to take a step back when we're in the thick of it, to realize where we're going and the direction we're trying to head, and understanding that it's okay to stop early. We don't need, if the entirety of potential is 100%, we can take it to 50, 60%, and that is perfectly okay. We don't need to always find that last 10, 20% in what's possible to get real benefit out of what we're trying to create. And I think the other aspect of that is that when we have this idea of automation in our brain, especially if we've automated other aspects of our business, our tendency is to try to automate too soon in the process when it's still a very fluid and dynamic situation, and we haven't figured out what our true north and direction is yet. If you just started doing something new in your business, I wouldn't automate that yet. I want you to wait 1 to 3 months into doing this process when it hasn't changed in 4 weeks and you're doing it the same way and everybody knows what's going on. That's the point where then you can then look at it and go, okay, now let me apply this tool of automation to bring this process a little bit farther down the path and make it a little bit better. If we do it too early, then it's wasted effort, and then that breeds that frustration of, well, it's not working the way I expected, because I'm not doing it the same way that I did it 3 weeks ago, and I forget that the automation is reliant on that old way of thinking. So we need to make sure that we're running off of a stable understanding and a stable workflow within our business.
And that makes a lot of sense. You have to understand how it's supposed to be done before you can actually systematize it, because you've got to make sure that you handle all of the little things that come up, and you've got your processes down, and so that you can do that. So we talk about leverage, and leverage and systems go together. One of the problems with leverage is small changes can have big results at the other end. And so it works both ways. If you do it appropriately, you get great results. But if you make mistakes, small problems turn into massive problems. So you've got to make sure that you do this appropriately, you test it, and you make sure that you've got it down correctly. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that business owners should know about implementing automation?
I will say 2 thoughts about automation. One is that adding automation to your business is very much like riding a bicycle uphill, in that the first part of it, you're working really hard, and to your point of making sure that our decisions are correct and we're using the lever correctly, we get the payoff when we get to the top of the hill and we get to coast down the other side. So understand that an immediate gratification when you're building this out is a quick path to using a lever that creates a bad outcome because you haven't fully thought through what you're doing. And the other aspect that I'd like to leave you with is, when you're adding automation into your business, think about it the same way as adding an employee to your business. Right? It just happens to be an employee that works for your entire team instead of a body in a chair in front of a computer. But if you think about it from the same point of view of, you're going to bring that team member in, you're going to introduce them to the rest of the team, you're going to understand what their job description is, what their intended outcomes are, what they're going to be responsible for. And then you're going to train them and monitor them in the beginning and work with them to get them to a point where you can increase the scope of work of what they're having and their liberties within your business. That same progression fits really well into the same way that you add automation into your business. So automation is a team member that happens to be working for your entire organization instead of one person.
And that's a great way to look at it. As you said, it's not always easy to do this ourselves, and sometimes we need help. If people would like to learn more about you, your company, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can go to my LinkedIn profile, Richard Schnitzel Jr. Schnitzel is Schnitzel. Happy to chat with you via message on LinkedIn. You can also go to the website at richardschnitzel.com. And if what we've talked about today has garnered some interest and you want to start down this path of understanding your business, you can go to richardschnitzel.com/5 steps. I have a guide there of how to simplify your business to 5 steps to start understanding at a very high level what the flow of your business is and start that progress of creating Legos and systematizing the way that you operate so that you can then apply that to using automation as a tool in what you do.
And I will put those in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
We didn't chat about it today, but Rich also uses the Profit First system. You could probably guess that as a systems lover, he loves the systems for his finances, and Profit First makes it easy. What can you automate in your business to get rid of the things you hate to do? Which ones can help you increase your profitability and provide you more time to live your life? Remember, small changes add up over time, and changing your company mindset to automating the mundane that everyone hates to do makes for a much nicer work environment. I'm a big fan of automation myself, so take a little step and make your life a little easier. As Rich mentioned, it's like another employee in your business who shows up 24/7, never takes a sick day, and costs you less, making you more profitable. Remember, you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer, because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.